Whatever variety you like.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Select Board meeting. Today's the 3rd of March. We're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So just in case you don't know, tonight is election night for the primary. So if you have not had a chance to vote, you can come on down and actually vote. The polls are open till 8 o'clock. Right, so welcome everybody. Does anybody have any announcements or words of wisdom or gratitude?
No, just to say that the lines have seemingly been quite long most of the day, so it sounds like a good turnout probably. I'll be interested to see what the total vote count is. But yeah.
Good.
Yeah, Maureen, just a question. When I was in line voting, somebody stopped me and asked me a question about Labrie Field.
Yeah.
And they said the sign on Labrie Field says future home of.
Oh,
So who's involved with taking care of that?
that would be Park.
Parks? So,
Yeah.
okay. Want me to
Mark.
contact them?
Mark Reed. Yeah, if you're willing to do that.
Okay, I'll be glad
that's great.
to. Yep.
Yeah, that's
It should be
interesting.
changed.
Oh, actually, you want to come up there, or you want me to just relay what you said? That the Park Commission should have money allocated to do a new sign?
Community preservation gave them a specific different
Okay,
project for signs all over.
okay.
I think people should, and I don't know what it's going to
I
say.
know that,
I'll find out. Is that Mark Reed that's on the park? Okay.
yeah, Mark
Okay.
Reed,
I'll give Mark a call.
Have them on College Highway and on
right.
East Street.
So Virginia Ahart, Chair of Community Preservation, is saying that funds were made available to the Park Commission to actually update the signs and so forth. And I do know that there were other work that was went out to bid, and all the bids came back too high. So they're putting some of that work on hold, and we'll reintroduce that another time. But certainly the signs can be updated. Yeah, thanks, Virginia, and thanks, John.
Welcome.
I just want to say thank you to Lucy Dalton, our town clerk, who's very busy with the election and has 2 elections to actually concern herself with, because coming up on the 31st of March is the election for replacing the state senator. So please be sure to vote for that, too. Dawn Hummerson. Pardon me?
You'll have a select board.
Yeah, interesting.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so appointments. We have a resignation of Robin Richard from the Southampton Board of Registrars, effective immediately, and that was, that letter is in your packet. I guess there's some new information that we obtained relative to the Board of Registrars and a potential conflict of people being, having positions in town, so
Other elected positions.
other elected positions in town. So she has resigned effective immediately from the Board of Registrars, and a letter went out from Ed Gibson to both party chairs relative to having additional members on the Board of Registrars. So next is appointments. First, we have Stephen Crowley, Agricultural Commission, term to expire June 30th, 2021, and Stephen is here to introduce to us. Hello. Hello. And you're on Public Access TV, too. So
Oh, awesome. So my name is Stephen Cowley. I grew up on a farm in Southampton. I operate that farm today. It's about 35 acres of hay and pasture. However, I did not really appreciate the opportunity I had growing up until I went away to college and did some national service programs across the country. And I especially appreciated it after I've been teaching in Springfield for the last 2 years, how rare that opportunity is to grow up in a place that has open space and actually you get to see how some of your food is grown. So my goal being on the commission would be to help preserve that opportunity for people in the future, because I believe that our soil and our farmers are really Southampton's most valuable asset, and also help farmers economically and make sure that, you know, as far into the future as possible, people have access to these good things. So.
absolutely. And we're, you know, very, you know, we have a right, we're a right to farm community.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is a great distinction to have in our beautiful town. What other, would you have any questions for Stephen?
No,
And I
just-
apologize, I said Crowley, it's Cowley.
That's all right. Happens all the time.
Where's your farm, Stephen?
East Street.
East Street, good.
Yeah, it's kind of back out of the way. But I also, I got involved in the Agricultural Commission through Tom Bashista, because I've been doing the hay at Bashista Orchards this past year as well. So I was there for meetings with, for the right to farm and that sort of thing.
Oh,
So,
great.
yeah.
Well, hopefully this is just a start of commissions that you would want to join and learn from. So-
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's like, I feel like it's a perfect start for being involved in the town, because
That's awesome.
I really do appreciate it. So
That's great.
Great, good.
Any other?
No, thanks for stepping up, that's great.
Yeah, very much. So would someone like to make a motion then?
I'll make the motion. We accept the appointment of Stephen Qualley and also the resignation of Robin Richard.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Thank you again.
Now, does he have to go before Lucy to get
You
some,
have to be, yes, you have to be,
see the
yes.
town clerk?
See the town clerk to be sworn in, but she's right now in the middle of the election, so sometime if you can stop into town hall.
You can't really go to a meeting unless you're sworn in, can't vote at a meeting
Can't
unless
vote
you're
at a
sworn in.
can I just get her contact information so that way I can arrange?
Yes.
Yeah, she's on the website, but she's here Monday through Thursday, plus every other Tuesday evening in the town clerk's office, which is the door right next door. Yeah, so
So let's set that.
that'd be great.
Yeah,
Okay,
great.
thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you again. So now, no hearings, and we're going to do select board reports. Who would like to start?
I'll start. There hasn't been too much. We have a community preservation meeting tomorrow evening at 5:30. We had a Concom meeting last evening, and I'll be reporting on that a little bit in more detail. And I think that's about it for me.
That's one thing about these weekly meetings, is breeze through the select board reports. Anybody else?
I don't have anything for school or for PQB, but I do have the capital. I have a report from the capital committee. We can be as detailed or general as you want. We're going to ultimately have a meeting with them, or with that committee. But things look good. The requests came in from each of the departments, and we vetted them all out. We met with each of the departments in separate meetings, prioritized the list, and for the most part, we're able to fund most of the projects. We had to trim some things down in an effort to try to get things to fit within the boxes, but for the most part, people, might not be getting everything that they asked for, but, quantity-wise, but we're able to get them most of it.
And that includes the Hampshire Regional Capital things, too?
So that we haven't yet discussed that.
Okay,
So I think, it'll come out of committee, but we haven't discussed
Right,
that
right.
portion of it. But the town projects look like they're pretty good.
That's fantastic.
Yep.
All right, speaking of Hampshire Regional, they had their monthly meeting last night. The school committee approved the fiscal year '21 budget. Now, that means it goes forward to each of the 5 towns to vote on it. I can say that it looked like they used a very sharp pencil this year. Our share, the Southampton share for the regular budget only increased by $101,000, which is probably the least that I can recall in the last 5 or 6 years. And then as a separate item, they put together a capital budget, and our share would be $179,000 for Southampton. It is a total increase for our town in its assessment for Hampshire Regional from fiscal year 20 to 21. It's an increase of $280,000, which still is substantially lower than it has been in the past. I know it's a lot of money, but it is.
What percent is that, do you know offhand?
Our
It is less than
percentage
2?
went up
280,000 is less than 2?
1.95%
That's
increase.
fantastic. That needs to get out there in terms of it being separate, I think. I think that's an important point.
Okay, so other things that went on at the meeting is that they approved a civic engagement activity for students, which would allow them to take 1 day per semester to be involved in almost something like what we're looking outside the door and seeing all the voters, but becoming better acquainted with municipal, state, and federal government. So it's a great learning opportunity. There will be, however, a special meeting next Monday at 6:30. They had a number of international trips planned for the students. And with the coronavirus issues, the parents and the administration and the school committee are going to get together and discuss whether or not they're going forward with their plans. Obviously, deposits have been made and so on and so forth, but that will be next Monday. So for people who are interested in that, 5:30 at the 6:30 at the high school library. And then the open space and recreation planning committee to rewrite our plan will resume its activities. There's a meeting scheduled for Monday, the 9th at 5:30 here in the room. So that's it.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, bylaws meeting is this Thursday at 10:30 if anybody's interested. Thank you.
Is this it?
That's it.
Planning board, last planning board meeting was a joint meeting here, so everybody was involved with that. Next one is tomorrow, 7 o'clock here, if anybody wants to attend. Finance committee, last two were canceled because there wasn't a quorum there, and Pat Monahan recently resigned from that committee, so there's only two standing members right now, so we can't have a finance committee meeting at this point and have a quorum. I know Matt has identified one person that's interested, so hopefully Ed will follow up with that person, get that person on board, and then we'll have at least a quorum of 3. But if anybody's out there looking,
Still need 2 more.
yeah, anybody's out there looking, this would only go until the May election, so if you just want to try it out for a couple of months, this is a great opportunity to do that.
And it's so important because we're right smack in the middle of, or
Yeah.
beginning of budget season, so we really need a finance committee that can vote.
Exactly. So if anybody's interested, you can see Ed. Safety Complex Committee, at the last meeting, we identified some possible lands in town, and we reached out to a couple landowners, and just recently, one of the landowners got back to us, said they were interested in talking to us on that, but that would be more an executive session for
Yeah.
negotiating. But there's some interest out there, so we're trying to push forward on the safety complex. The building commissioner, the shared building commissioner between Westhampton and here, I sent a sample agreement to the chair of the Board of Selectmen, or Select Board, sorry, in Westhampton, and he is presenting it to his folks there to see if that is reasonable. And it was a general agreement that came out of Watertown that Ed got for me, and went through a bunch of them. This was the most simplistic. Some of them were 10 pages long, and from my point of view, I don't think we want to get into that kind of detail. So if they accept it, they had a meeting last night, so I'm waiting to hear back from them. I'll with Ed, we'll actually put in our town information, the percentages and all that, bring it to this board so we can review it, and then both boards can vote on it. But
Okay.
hopefully we're getting close on that. I know they're still interested, we're interested, and our building commissioner is interested.
Great.
Yep.
And that's just a vote of the both boards? It doesn't have to go in front of the town, right?
Correct. Yeah. And extended accident sickness plan, it's on the agenda elsewhere, so I'll talk about that.
Yeah, so is shared building commission, but that's good. We don't,
Yeah,
that's,
okay.
glad to have that update.
Okay.
Okay, so,
Town administrator.
yeah, go ahead, Tammy.
Tammy Lunas, 298 College Highway. Is there a bylaw that says we have to have a finance committee in order for this town to run and operate?
Right now, our whole budget bylaw does mention the finance committee. So yes.
So if we don't come May, if we don't have people step up,
Yeah, we're going to
what
have.
will happen?
Yeah, that's a very
We-
good question.
We have one, we just don't have a quorum. So technically, but you're right, if we don't have an elected finance committee at the May election, we're in trouble.
Yeah,
Does that mean we all shut down?
No, it means
No.
people come forward to fill seats
Yeah.
and keep it going until we can find,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
yeah.
Thank
So the
you.
best thing that could happen is if people are interested in being on the finance committee, please contact our town administrator, Ed Gibson, ASAP.
Rini, I've got one more announcement, sorry.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, just one thing. The Master Plan Implementation Committee also meets next Tuesday, May 9th at 7 o'clock.
Monday, March 9th.
What did I say? March 9th? May 9th, okay, yeah, March 9th would be good, rather than May. Sorry. Ooh, what happened the last 2 months? March 9th, which I believe is it Monday night?
That's-
Monday night. Yes, it is, Monday night.
That's good. It
All right,
takes,
I'm
it
on the
takes
wrong
a
calendar.
committee. It takes a committee. Thank you very much.
Takes a
I don't have
village.
any reports. Board of Health does not have a meeting planned, and I reported in the last one. COA meets tomorrow, Council of Aging tomorrow, 9:30, and the Open Space Review Committee meets Thursday at 6 o'clock. So I'll have an update next time. Okay, anything else? So we'll move into the Town Administrator report, and Matt will read that for us, from Ed Gibson.
John, excuse me, John Lumbra, Chair of the Southampton School Committee, has contacted me to let me know that there are 2 vacancies to the elected office of the Southampton School Committee, which will need to be filled. The school committee has announced the vacancies to the Southampton registered voters, and it is posted on the town website and the bulletin board outside the town clerk's office. Registered Southampton voters should send letters of interest to filling the vacant positions, which the terms are until May 2020 annual election, to either John Lumbra, School Committee Chair, or Ed Gibson, Town Administrator. There will be a joint meeting of the Select Board and Southampton School Committee on March 17th for the purposes of appointing 2 resident voters to the Southampton School Committee until the annual town election to fill the 2 vacancies which occurred from resignations. Please let me know if you would like to begin the joint meeting at 5:30 or 5:45 before the start of the regular Select Board meeting, so that we can post this as, a separate meeting of the 2 boards, or if you prefer to schedule this as the very first agenda item on the Select Board agenda as a joint meeting with the school committee and have it begin at 6. Do we want to decide that now, or do you want me to keep going?
Sorry, I was distracted by a text.
So basically, he wants to know whether or not we want to schedule this meeting as, a joint meeting before our scheduled Select Board meeting on the 17th.
Oh, right.
Or whether we just want to add it to, for the purposes of posting here, a separate meeting of the 2 boards, or if we just want to schedule this as an agenda item on our meeting, starting at 6.
Does anybody have a preference for that?
It's only going to take a few minutes, I would
Yeah,
think.
I think we talked about it already at the beginning.
I'd prefer for it to be at the beginning
Yeah,
of
I think we already-
the 6 p.m., the
Okay.
first agenda item on our 6 p.m. meeting.
Okay,
Do we want to
sure.
vote on that, or do we need to vote on that? I don't think we, okay, so Ed, first agenda item on our 6 p.m. March 17th meeting. Pat Monahan has sent his resignation from Finance Committee, and this will be on the next Select Board agenda under resignations. John Labrie has also expressed that he has plans to resign from the Finance Committee, and I have asked him if he would consider not making his resignation effective until the May annual election.
Does anybody know his response to that? Is that a really
We got a letter of
complicated?
Would that mean
Resignation.
that we would only have one person?
Yes, that's right.
I thought John agreed to stay on until May.
Did he? Okay.
I thought that's what I understood, so.
I'm sure he's listening, so if he could just let me know, that'd be
call
great.
us. Yes.
Okay. Needless to say, we hopefully we're going to find some interest in Finance Committee very soon. There are 2 vacancies on the local Southampton School Committee for registered Southampton voters, as if I haven't said that a few times before. Until the May 2020 annual town election, we are also looking for 2 town resident voters to volunteer and serve on the Finance Committee until the May 2020 annual town election, and also 1 resident volunteer for the Conservation Commission to fill the current vacancy on that committee, and 1 resident to fill the current vacancy on the Park Commission until the next annual town election in May of 2020. We are also looking for 1 resident to serve as a member of the Zoning Board of Appeals and 1 resident to serve as an alternate member on the Zoning Board of Appeals. The Council of Aging is looking for 2 volunteers to fill 2 alternate member vacancies on the COA Advisory Board. We are also looking for 2 resident volunteers to fill 2 vacancies on the Bylaw Review Committee and 2 resident voters to fill 2 vacancies on the Housing Authority until the May 2020 annual town election. The 5-town meeting will be held on March 25th at 6 p.m. in Williamsburg at their town hall. Please send me any suggestions for agenda items, and I will forward them along. The Emergency Management Director and Health Director will be having a, quote, staff-level meeting for summarizing the coronavirus potential risks on Thursday at 1:30 p.m. This meeting is for internal town department staff that would be pertinent to responding to the coronavirus if it were to show up in Southampton. The cab and chassis for the Highway Department dump plow truck appropriated at the May 2019 annual town meeting was received at the dealership last week, and it is being shipped off to the body upfitter, I'm assuming that's Mass Headquarters, MHQ, to have the truck body and sanding components added to it before it is complete and shipped to the Highway Department for their use. It sounds like that'll be coming soon. The Massachusetts Municipal Association Spring Legislative Breakfast Series will be held in Western Mass on March 6th in Conway Town Hall Meeting Room. Closest, and March 13th in Great Barrington Town Hall Meeting Room. Both breakfast meetings will begin at 8 a.m. For those who have not registered and wish to do so, please let Judy or myself know if you would like to register for either of those sessions.
Thank you very much.
I guess the last is upcoming select board meetings are March 17th and 31st.
Before you go there, the old business, I think there's some updates in the old business.
Yeah, I
You
was,
can keep going, but you told me to skip that.
there's agenda items for those, but you're welcome to go ahead, and then we can just cross them off when they come up to them.
What's on
Can I
the,
just ask a question first on the, I just want to make sure we have a quorum for the meetings that are coming up, okay? So is everybody, who's able to go to the 25th meeting, which is the 5-town meeting?
when?
That's the one that involves the towns, the 5 towns that make up the
25th?
meeting on the 25th?
I'll be there.
On the 25th at 6 in Williamsburg.
Yes.
Yeah, I can go.
Yeah,
I mean-
one thought on that, we're talking about agenda items, maybe that's a good place to discuss sharing of services in general, not necessarily specific ones, but, at least going, a building commissioner comes to mind because we're working on that.
Yeah. I did send along a message about that also, to have it be a discussion around shared services.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So I have a school committee meeting that same night that conflicts.
Okay.
I'm not sure what should take precedent, I think.
Are you able to go, John?
I'll be there, yeah.
Okay, then the 4 of us will be able to make it, so
You'll be where,
we'll
John?
have a quorum.
Okay,
So you can, go to whichever one.
whichever one I want.
And then the 17th and 31st. Is everybody able to make those?
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm fine.
You
I'm out of
should,
town on the 31st. So, Rob, are you
17th,
here?
on the 3rd, let me see. I didn't realize we scheduled the 31st, but yeah, I can make the 31st.
It's kind of like the every other, and that 25th was an extra one in between. So everybody's good for a quorum for those?
Yes.
Okay. You want to keep going then, Matt?
Yeah. Let me just put this in, or else I'll forget. Okay. Old business. I have received a verbal acknowledgement from Charter Spectrum that they received our letter concerning the building they use on Former Road, which is on town property. They have acknowledged that we have a different take on the licensing agreement that is in place for when the building was installed, and promised to get back to us after reviewing the issue with their legal department. I expect to hear back from them more definitively in the next 2 weeks. I'm waiting to hear from our town council on the wording for the Easthampton Media public access contract concerning ownership of the equipment and the procurement of the equipment. I expect to have a response later this week. The next meeting of the Open Space and Recreation Plan Update Committee will be Monday, March 9th at 5:30 p.m. I have spoken with our IT consultant, and there are 2 ways that we would be able to supply the means of supplying an amplified voice medium in the 2 meeting rooms to meet the requirements of the remote participation of public meeting members for everyone in the room to be able to hear them and anyone listening at home. The long-term solution would be, once the town has changed to a voice or over IP phone system, that a conference phone with extended speakers could be purchased and would be able to be plugged into the Ethernet jacks in those meeting rooms, and that would act as the same as the phone line. The conference phone itself or one of the external speakers should be placed next to one of the audio microphones if the public meeting was recorded or broadcasted live. A shorter-term solution may be to purchase and provide a Bluetooth speaker to be used along with a cell phone If the public meeting were to be recorded or broadcast live, then the Bluetooth speaker should be placed next to an audio microphone. It should be noted here that the cell phone would have to be Bluetooth compatible, and the Bluetooth compatible cell phone would also have to be compatible with the Bluetooth speaker, which was purchased. I don't see a problem with any of that.
I don't see a problem with any of that either. In fact, I have a speaker that's Bluetooth, and I use it for meetings, so.
They're all compatible. I mean, any speaker is compatible with any phone.
I would think we'd only use it for an important vote anyways. you
Right,
know.
right.
Can I make a suggestion that we actually proactively go with the short-term solution?
Yeah.
I mean, I think as we get going now, and especially if we get in situations where people are sick and can't come to meetings, if, with whatever happens in the future with coronavirus, for example, if people were encouraged to stay home and not attend meetings,
Yeah.
this would be very handy. So I would like to move that we move on that and get the possibility of doing the short-term solution now.
Yep.
I'd be happy to donate a speaker. I have a speaker.
Yeah.
The only caveat is, I know we're talking about, should we all start kind of meeting from home? But according to the requirements or the regulations, you have to have a physical a quorum physically present
Yeah.
to allow the remote access for others who couldn't participate, but the quorum has to be here.
Right.
It seems very doable. I think we should go along with this motion, and, I mean, if you're interested in donating, that's great. Otherwise, there was additional money approved at the recent town meeting to restore the reserve fund. So either way, I mean, I think, why don't we just, we have a motion to move forward with allowing remote access and following the regulations that are required. Someone want to second that?
I'll second it.
Any further discussion?
Just a question, should we have a process for one of us to let the others know by a certain time and everything, a particular day of a meeting? I'm
Yeah.
guessing we don't want somebody to call in 10 of 6 and say, I'm not going to make it, put me on
Right.
Bluetooth,
Right. I
So we
think
should
there
have some
be
basic
kind of a,
parameter.
right.
I mean, I think we have whether we need to have a policy or not, I think we're all pretty good about telling each other when we're going to be.
No, but I mean, where's the speaker going to reside and all that stuff? So we need to just make sure everybody knows where it is. And
But the speaker is portable, so we can
Oh, yeah.
from
Yeah.
room, because
Yeah.
other committees would like to make use of that equipment as well, to
Yeah.
accommodate their members.
Would it be worth coming up with a, handout that that we can make available to committees that say, I don't want, people to just saying, oh, they can just call in and not have a speaker. Like, we should have it in writing, some kind of, no barriers, but just in kind of expectations around the use of remote participation.
because really you have to take a voice vote, and it's got to be in a certain way to count.
Right.
Yeah, so,
You mean a voice vote of a committee to allow that?
yeah, on any vote.
On everything, right.
So if I'm on the phone, you folks have to take the same voice vote, Martin and I.
Right.
Yeah, so if people don't understand that, then the vote wouldn't be any good.
Okay, so maybe the motion is to support the remote access. Chris, this has been something that you've been kind of moving forward. Would you mind kind of like,
Sure.
kind of talking to Ed about it and
Sure. We'll see if we can draft
maybe
something.
drafting something?
Yeah, we can draft something. And do you want to see it back here first before?
What do you think? Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe, but
So maybe-
let's put it on the next agenda, like on the
Okay, good.
17th, so that, we're moving it along.
So basically just some rules of the road of how and when to use it, kind of thing?
Yeah, just some general guidelines without putting up a lot of barriers.
Sure.
But
Okay.
I just want to make sure that people know more than
Yeah.
anything that they have to have a speaker. It has to be Bluetooth compatible.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you want to go ahead and vote on that then?
Yeah.
So it's basically to support the remote access and to come up with a draft of some guidelines for committees to use.
Okay.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great. Okay. Did you get through all that? You got through all of that, right?
Get through all of it.
All right, so now, unless anybody has anything else, we can move into some of the quarterly reports, starting with Community Preservation. Virginia Ahart, Chair. Thank you very much. So we have a report from the Conservation Commission that Cindy will be giving a report on, and then Open Space and Master Plan, Cindy Palmer will be reporting on.
Virginia Ahart, 27 Fulmer Road, Chair of the
Community Preservation Committee. I kind of looked at what we've been doing for a little more than the last quarter, obviously. Not too much is happening in one quarter. But there were some outstanding things, I think, that happened in the year 2019, including the helping the acquisition of 2 parcels of land, the Glendale Clearwater Conservation Area, which has hiking trails and things, and the Pomeroy Meadow Road land, which is a protection of the recharge area for the town's only well. Work is continued on the Labrie Field. It seems it's been going on forever, but it got put on hold for a little while, and we've gotten back at that. The library is continuing very nicely to get some of our historical documents put on their website, which would make them available to anyone who wanted to do town research. This year, too, I think one of the things that I have enjoyed doing is working with one of our Girl Scouts who is working on her Golden Award. If you're not familiar enough with the Girl Scouts, that really is on a par with a Boy Scouts Eagle, but they never get the recognition, of course. They never have gotten the recognition, but they do that work. And she looked at things that they needed maybe at the school, and there was a need for shade over the pre-K kindergarten play area. And so that is what she's been working on. She's obtained, we've helped fund this, and she has obtained the information she needs, and orders have been placed, and they hope to have that in place for this, obviously, fairly soon, so that it will be in use this spring and summer. I do know that apparently there's a kindergarten meet and greet kind of thing in the summer, and they like to go out and have the children play together and get acquainted. And some of the parents didn't bring their children because it had gotten so hot without shade. And by the way, the whole pre-kindergarten, kindergarten little play area was also a project several years ago that the PTO brought to community preservation. We had received in the fall the notice that the acreage of land in the state that's preserved using community preservation funds. And they listed the towns in the order of the amount they had saved. And Southampton was 10th in the state for the actual acreage preserved. And that was before we did these 2 that I mentioned. So we're doing okay there. The original matching grant from the state was announced at $96,342, which still is not a bad return. It was almost 50% on our funding. But I'm sorry, since then, there was that budget. The state budget had surplus, and $20 million was put into community preservation. And we received another $69,179, which makes it $165,000 plus that we received from the state. And this will be available. They did say the second amount may not be available actually in our coffers until pretty close to fall, but it is coming. And beginning in January 2020, the fees on deed transactions went, which is where this money comes from. It's an earmarked fund at the Department of Revenue that people pay on their deeds, was increased. For the 20 years of community preservation, there has not been any increase in that amount. And they increased the $20 fee on a regular deed to $50. And on lien certificates, they went up from 10 to 25. And they're pretty much guaranteeing any town or city that's in at 3%, as we are, will probably, unless something really strange happens, get 100%. And I don't know where else you can get interest like that on your money. And what projects are on our agenda right now? Requests, there are 2 requests that have come from the Conservation Commission. One is simply to do, there was the microburst that happened earlier, did a lot of damage to trees on Manhan Meadows. And it is really almost dangerous because limbs are hanging and trees are hanging, and they would like to get somebody that does professional cutting to come in and do that, because it's not safe for a bunch of volunteers. So we're working on that. And then they have applied for a state grant, and that would do all kinds of improvements to Manhan Meadows, and they will need a matching grant. It's not very much, really, in comparison, at the percentage, but they will need that from the town, and we have accepted that project also. And we are working, and tomorrow we will be looking at the project coming in, projects, really, 2 of them, that Tammy could actually tell you more about, from the Southampton Historical Society's Clark Chapman House, which has many, many artifacts of Southampton. And it has not had a really serious restoration. And it needs a roof, and it needs all sorts of other physical things. So Tammy will be bringing us a project for the roof and also for a wall and foundation. So, any questions?
I think you've got one more, Virginia, from Parks Commission and Council of Aging on the pickleball courts.
Oh, yes. I forgot about that. I was running out of space on that day. The Park Commission and the Council on Aging are looking into having some pickleball courts. And they don't have any figures yet. They don't know exactly where it might be. But we are entertaining that and are looking for more information. We've been doing an awful lot for our kids. And so now it's time maybe to do some things for our older citizens. Okay.
Thanks. Just a question on the pickleball, because I know you, Francine, you play pickleball, right? Do any of the younger members of the town play it, or is that strictly older than?
Oh, no, it's open to anyone.
No, I realize, but.
And over the course of the winter, we've been playing at Norris School.
Yep.
We leave the nets and the paddles there. The equipment was purchased by the Council on Aging, so
Yep.
that the phys ed teacher at Norris School teaches the 6th graders pickleball.
Oh, okay.
My understanding
That's
is
cool.
that some teachers are using the equipment after school, so we just use it Sunday afternoons. And we're getting a turnout of, 15 to 20 people every week.
Wow, that's nice.
There's a good number of
senior citizens who are getting mild exercise with this.
That's
Yeah,
only
it's great.
mild.
Virginia,
I've heard how she plays. I think it's,
I don't know about that, but Mark Reed was here from the Conservation one night, or Parks, I'm sorry, Parks Commission, and he said that it was quite a workout for him when he played. He didn't play here, he played someplace when they were on vacation, and it gave him a good workout, so it may be a little more active than, but it is really a much more milder exercise.
I just want to say something also. Did you want to say something first, though, Chris?
No.
The Manhan Trail there, I mean, last time I was there, remember we had the volunteers all clean it up, and then right after that was with the microburst, unfortunately. It's very unsafe, so I'm glad that CPC is able to, address that. I also was there when kids were in there, and there's kids that usually go regularly go through there, and I'm just really worried about their safety, so I'm glad that this is being addressed.
Yeah.
I had a question for either you or John relative to CPC funds being used for a greenway. Has there been any decision on that?
no, that's still going through the legislation.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
It's the rail trail issue there.
yeah. And I'm not planning on having a project come in this year on it at the rate.
Not
it's
this
going.
fiscal year, for sure.
No, not the way that
Right.
it's traveling through.
Yeah.
And it's
Going
been
slow.
on their books for quite a while.
Yeah.
So, any other?
Thank you very much. Is it okay if we go to Cindy, since you're stuck here anyway, Chris? So Cindy's going to report on the two committees.
Hello, Cindy Palmer, 71 Glendale Road. I'm going to report on two committees kind of briefly because you've been kept up to date a good deal on these. One of them is the Open Space Committee, and the Open Space Committee is actually a fairly new committee. It grew out of an ad hoc committee. The Select Board appointed an Open Space Committee just in December of 2019, and I know the charge and some of the other aspects of it are still in process. I talked to Ed about it the other day, and so I think we're moving along, but we understand, and this is for the benefit of everybody listening, that this committee is formed to help protect Southampton's farmlands, woodlands, wetlands, scenic views, and other open spaces that are vital to our town's historic, agricultural, and rural character, and to its air, water, and wildlife resources for the health and well-being of all residents. So we work very closely with other town boards and committees, depending on the issue. We are interested in working with the Conservation Commission as various issues come up. We're not just a little silo by ourselves. One of the main tasks currently is to start to create an inventory, a current inventory of Southampton lands of interest for conservation. It doesn't mean the town is going to purchase every single parcel of land. It can't. But there are town residents that maybe even have large parcels. They're working with Kestrel in terms of climate resiliency, et cetera. That might be something that a Kestrel donor, a large one, might be able to support. But so we're hearing and we're seeing things, and we're also aware that there have been inquiries in the past, and we're looking to develop as I said, an inventory of lands of interest just to understand that, and that will also fit in closely with the open space and recreation plan that is being currently updated. So once again, we're working together on that. And the third thing to say is that from this committee, we have seen the formation of a new Friends Committee. It's called Friends of Open Space. They're in process of becoming a 501c3 committee and group. They are not a town board or committee. They're not elected, strictly voluntary. They're putting together their bylaws, and they're forming right now. And it's a process, and fortunately, one of our local attorneys has volunteered time to help. That's Amanda Kemp. And so all that is happening right now. So that's the report from the Open Space Committee. Do you have any questions or comments?
Just to suggest that we get the charge on on our agenda, maybe, if you've got a draft charge that we should be looking at, if Select Board has to approve that?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think that's in the
Ed
works.
said that's in the works, yeah. So thanks on
Can
that.
you just mention, I'm the liaison to this committee, and I was in the original one, can you just mention about the maps that exist upstairs?
Oh, yeah, thanks. So actually, that grew out of one of the grants we won last year, which was the Neighborhood Outreach Grant, and that was a 3-part presentation. 2 of them occurred at a large hall here at our church, and the third one was a hike and a picnic at Conant Park. But as a result of that, we really wanted to have a perception, a visual perception of our lands. So there was a purchase made from that grant money of large maps. I'm hoping I'm saying this right. Are they about 2.5 feet by 5 feet, perhaps, in size? Something like that?
Yeah, they're big.
Bigger. And they're posted on the 2nd floor conference room of this building, the town hall. You can look at them. And it helps us to see which some of the maps that are currently conserved lands, wetlands, et cetera. So we find that really helpful when we meet up there. We can look at them. We're also becoming better at reading some of the online map resources, the GIS maps, and there's one called Oliver, and it grows out of the Audubon website and also grows out of, what's the other website, Rini? I can't remember the one, Mass GIS. Thank you. I'm so glad. When you spoke, I thought, boy, there's a person we might like in that committee. Yeah, we appreciate that. Yeah, that'd be great. And the Agricultural Commission we're very eager to work consistently with whatever the goals of that committee are as well. Thanks. Okay, any other questions about open space?
Nope.
Okay. The Master Plan Implementation Committee, there's been a lot of recent updates for the Select Board on that, in the sense that we recently had a joint meeting, and that was just 1 week ago, and that was a joint meeting with the Planning Board, the Select Board, and the Master Plan Implementation Committee. And also, if you recall, you had a report from our chairperson, whose name is Mike Rosenberg, and he reported to you in November of last year, just to talk about the identified goals and strategies as priority. The announcement is that our committee won the DLT award, and that stands for District Local Technical Assistance, and that's administered through our regional planning group, which is called Pioneer Valley Planning Commission, and we've been assigned the assistance of Ken Comia, who is a professional planner. He was able to be at the joint meeting. We're very sensitive to the fact that the amount of money that's made available is not going to be endless. It only works in this calendar year of 2020. And the good news is, in my opinion, and Chris Fowles and I have chatted a bit about this because she's vice chair of this committee, the good news is that we've done a lot of the prioritization work. The next big step is to gather input from the community. And some of you, I'm looking at you, Rini, you wrote down a whole bunch of stuff. If you can, at some point, email that to me so we can integrate that into our approach for involving the community, the goals you had indicated when you were at that meeting. And anybody listening, I know Tammy had a bunch to say that night too, anyone who's listening who really wants to make sure we bring in specific information or ideas to include into our community visioning. That might be a survey, and it likely will include town meetings, some here, maybe one we were talking about Conant Park, take advantage of already planned town events, Spring into Southampton, Celebrate Southampton, and other events. So we're, recreating new events. We're just realizing that town residents are going to be coming out for that, and we value tremendously the input from the town of all ages and all interests. So can I make that any clearer? I don't think so. And to make a point that's important, these are open meetings. I know you announce when these meetings are occurring, when you give your reports. You can find them on mytowngovernment.org, and we do have an open space meeting this Thursday evening at 6 p.m.
6 o'clock, yep.
Yeah, no, this Thursday evening is the Master Plan Implementation Committee meeting. No, that's next Monday, sorry. This Thursday evening, 6 p.m., second floor, is the open space meeting. Next Monday is the 9th at 7 p.m., and that is also on the second floor.
And isn't also next Monday the open space and recreation
they're back to back.
Okay,
one's at 5:30 and one's at 7.
Okay.
Good. So, and I'm going to make one more important point. Our library is sponsoring a speaker whose name is Scott Jackson. He is a professor at UMass in environmental conservation. He's also the chair of the Kestrel Board, and he is speaking on March 26th, a Thursday night, 6:30 to 8 p.m., right here in Edwards Library. He's going to be specifically talking about how climate change is impacting not only Southampton, but our entire valley, our state, frankly, our nation and the world. And I urge people that are listening and can attend this. I've heard him speak. I heard him at Westhampton Library. He's dynamic. He's knowledgeable. He uses maps. He uses visuals. And I hope that we'll get a big turnout for that. So, and it's obviously free. Starts at 6:30.
People have to register for that, Cindy?
I don't think you have to register in advance.
Okay.
But if you want to, you can go to kestreltrust.org. It says free, but space is limited, and anybody who knows our library knows that the community room is truly limited space.
Is there any chance that the presentation could be recorded, and then we talked about using this as a medium to continue to rebroadcast some
Yes.
special sessions?
Let me ask about that, Francine, that's really good. And that would be really good to have it as part of our bank of recordings. Excellent. So that's what I have to say.
Chris or Francine, do you have anything else to add?
No?
No? That's fine.
Anything else?
Just a question, location, since the venue is so small, would it make sense to transfer it to a bigger room like this and have
Well,
it
it's
record?
sponsored by the library, and I think this is, it's a good idea.
Just so we have recording equipment and, yeah.
I'll,
Is the library open at that hour?
yes, it is.
Oh, is that it?
It's a
Yeah.
Thursday evening, 6:30 to 8. I don't know, John, it may be too late
Just
to
a
make
thought,
that change. They've done a lot of advertising of it. Maybe, though, if it's really highly subscribed, we can see if we can get a repeat of it, because I know they're, very anxious to have that word out and do it another time. That's a good idea. I think it's in the hands of the library at this point.
I just want to clarify for people, because I think that even us that are involved in these open space initiatives, it can be confusing. So we have a Conservation Commission. We have an open space, ad hoc open space review committee, which was initially formed for the purchase for the intent of researching buying the Glendale Road 85-acre property. The intent is for this committee to become a standing committee. And then we also have that spin-off Friends of Conservation, which is a private 501(c) organization that has formed. And in addition, there's an open space and recreation plan, which is required every, is it 10 years or, oh, it's more,
7, I think.
7 years, and that enables the town to get grants. And we currently have 2 funding sources for that particular. One is the Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Grant is helping to also fund that. And so the meeting on Monday is about the Open Space and Recreation Plan, and Thursday night is the Open Space Review Committee.
That's right. It is confusing, isn't it?
It is.
One thing Ed did say to me, I wish he was here to, I probably shouldn't say. He's got some thoughts on making these a little more concise. I'll let him go.
Yeah, that
with
would be helpful,
that.
I think.
But I think if it's confusing to anybody, they should ask, and we should try to be clear about this. Actually, there's a conference coming up a couple weeks from now on a Saturday up at Greenfield Community College about forming open space committees and making them. And I think a few of us are thinking about going to to that conference. So hopefully to learn more. It's in April. Okay, but I'm planning to go to it. So. It is important.
Actually, April 25th, Saturday, 9:30 to 3:30 at Greenfield Community College. And it's 2020 Massachusetts Open Space Conference.
Yep, actually the thing's right there, yeah. Okay. So I think it's important that a town like Southampton have an open space committee for the reason of staying on top of some of these things. And it just isn't about land conservation, it's about many more options within it. But we all need to work together on these.
Sounds wonderful. Thank you so much, Cindy.
Thanks.
Okay, Chris, you're going to give us an update from Conservation Commission.
Right. Yeah, I've gotten just a quarterly report from the Conservation Commission that they asked that I present tonight. So basically, 2 new members were appointed and sworn in on February 18th, so we're very happy with that. We have 1 opening still. 2 new associate members have also volunteered to help the commission as well. On February 29th, 4 members of the Conservation Commission attended the Massachusetts Conservation Commission Annual Conference in Worcester. Wetlands protection bylaw has been requested to strengthen the Commission's ability to follow through on enforcement orders issued for violations of the Wetlands Protection Act. This is something, just a PS from my point of view from the Bylaws Committee. We had worked on drafting a bylaw with the hopes of having it ready for the special town meeting, but ran into some snags with our legal counsel in terms of language that needed to be improved. So we're hoping to hear from legal counsel as to how we can make that stronger and the appropriate wording that we can have it on the ballot for the, on the warrant for the annual town meeting in May. The enforcement issues are rarely issued in most cases, but when they are, usually the acknowledgement and compliance are pretty immediate. But in some cases, the Commission does need more resources to address violations in a more timely manner. So we're hoping to have that bylaw regarding the Wetlands Protection Act enforcement ready for May. In addition to handling the usual permitting responsibilities, the Conservation Commission has been working on developing a list of priorities for property maintenance. As has already been mentioned by Virginia, the microburst in July 2019 helped to establish a number 1 priority property, which is the Manhan Meadows Sanctuary. Funding has been requested from Community Preservation Committee to remove the hazardous trees and branches from the trails. And if anybody's been by there, you know that at both ends on East Street and over on the Brickyard Road side, there are signs posted that this area is closed. It's been closed since, gosh, I don't know, October, November-ish easily, because there are several trees down and then other trees that are hanging down over the trails that make it extremely unsafe. Doesn't mean that people are really obeying that. I wouldn't be surprised, but people are still walking in through there. But as has been mentioned, we have some quotations that have been given, and we have an arborist, hopefully with the funds from CPC, that we can get on board and take care of that within the near future rather than next year. In addition, Diana Fetterman has spent much time working on the Commission's behalf to develop an application for a recreational trails program grant, and this is to fund primarily the restoration work needed on the Hazel Young Trail. And this project involves walkways, bridges, benches, and some relocation of sections of the trail. There's parts of the trail that have gone into kind of an eroded bank area that need to be redesigned. Community preservation was requested, community preservation funding was requested as part of the match for the grant, as Virginia has said. Both CPC requests will go to the May 5th town meeting, and then they hope to hear about the Trails Grant, Recreational Trails Program Grant in June and July of this year. The second priority, aside from that, is really doing forest management work. Plans have begun for the Pomeroy Mountain Durrell's Path property. The Commission is working with a forester who developed a plan with the goals of maintaining the health of the forest, continuing to sequester carbon, continuing to provide wildlife habitat, and provide a safe and pleasant hiking environment, and pay for itself with some funds left over to pay for signage. So this is a number 1 priority, is to have, we've got the plans that have been developed to do the proper management and cutting of certain selected areas of that area. Other projects on the list as priorities will be trail and bridge work on the Clearwater Conservation Area and the Nancy Whittemore Conservation Area. And the biggest obstacle to property maintenance in general is the lack of funding. So the Conservation Commission is looking forward to working especially with the new Friends of Open Space group to discuss opportunities for volunteer work on the trails and to help out with a lot of local labor for maintenance of the trails. So that was written by Marla Hank, Chairman of the Conservation Commission.
Great, thank you, Chris. Any questions for Chris? Nope. Okay, so we can move away from the reports and we can go on with old business. East Street Bridge Mass Works update. I don't believe there are any updates. John Furman from VHB came and talked to us last time about where things are at with East Street Bridge. Does anybody else have any other updates on that? I don't think so. I think they're placeholders on the agenda, so we continue to talk about it each time. The next is the Old Town Hall study. There is an update in your packet. There's information about the envelope study for the Old Town Hall. Everybody get a chance to read that?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So basically, this company is gave us a scope of services, which is basically envelope study, which means the exterior of the building. This was money that was approved by the town through CPC. I think it was 10,000, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was.
10,000 for a study on restoration. I think the key word was restoration, because it's a historical building. At any rate, we do have information from a company who has sent us a proposal. What would you like to talk about relative to the paperwork that we got? I did have a couple questions, but I'm just curious to see if other people had any reactions to the proposal.
I guess my question is, having been involved with a lot of these in the past, is it's going to tell us everything that's wrong with it, and then we're going to have to figure out where to get that money. So
Yeah.
it's a good first step, but it's only a baby step, but we got to start here, I think.
And with that will be a cost estimate, right?
Right.
Yeah. So this is only to actually do a study on structurally outside of the building,
Right.
what roof, brick facade, fenestrations, windows and doors, immediate grade area around the building. I mean, I think, the big issue is, of course, the front steps that are blocked off right now, and the ramp.
I'm just going through this again. We were thinking 10,000, but it says 5,000.
Yeah.
Plus
and then there's additional
reimbursable.
fees.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there were estimates on those additional ones, like,
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, 150 for reimbursable, I mean, it's not a lot.
And then 550 additional fee for
something else,
additional
yeah.
labor expenses,
Yeah.
if deemed necessary by the town.
So they're basically going to give us a report that's going to outline all the various deficiencies that we would need to fix if we want to restore it. Is that?
Yeah, I think so. I don't think it is for change in use. I don't think we're looking at that. I think we're looking at the fact that it's a historical building, and if we were interested in preserving the integrity of the building, we can decide, based on the price and report, what we would want to look for money for fixing.
Yeah, the scope is up above. There's 5 major categories.
Yeah. So the question I had is, when it says available additional cost. Hill, the name of the company, offers a wide range of professional design and engineering services. The following services are not included with the scope of this proposal as presently formatted. These services are available for additional fees when so agreed in writing. So I guess my concern is that what's not included is a confirmation of compliance with historical buildings regulations. So to me, it just seems that they could make some suggestions, but I just don't, that's a challenge. And then it also says,
Those be our own regulations, like how could they comply with that
oh, no, it's a deemed historical building, so there are regulations that apply.
outside of our own?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, much more so.
So it basically says, the list of things that are not considered are what concerns me, because it says, I don't know, it just seems like the limitations are a concern, especially that one.
Well, maybe that, and also the preparation of drawings. I mean, to the extent we would want to go out and do something after this report, I mean, it would
Yeah.
seem like we'd want to have some of that included in the work that they're doing now. And certainly, I agree with you, whatever recommendations they'd be making, we'd need to be sure that we are in compliance with historical building requirements. And I don't see why that couldn't be part of the
Oh, well, I think it could be, it's just that's
current.
going
I
to
mean,
be
it
more
didn't include it,
expensive.
You just have to pay
it
for
would
it.
seem like that would be a good thing to request,
Yeah.
be added to whatever they've estimated right now.
I think the idea of this is just to give us a laundry list, if you will, of what it is. And if we decide we want to go ahead, we'd do a request for proposals. And that would, one of the criteria would be that I have to
Putting
meet
that,
all the
yeah.
local, state, federal, historic requirements. But right now, I don't think that's what we're asking them for.
But there's a big item here that they're not going to look at, is the cost of removing any hazardous materials.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, because they have to do a lot of testing and everything. Again, if we did a formal RFP, we may find out that there's so much here that it's going to be so daunting of a cost that we're going to decide something other than what maybe we're thinking now. I hate to put it that way, but if all of a sudden somebody says it's $10 million, that's a whole different thought process than if it's $2 million in my mind. So I think this will be the first step. Let us know, and then we go from there. And it's quote-unquote cheap money for finding out what the whole process will
Yeah.
be.
So it basically says our estimated fee to perform the scope of services described above and to provide the deliverables is $5,000. And I do believe $10,000 was approved by the voters from CPA money, and it was actually done quite some time ago. So we've been continuing to want this on the agenda to move it along, and so I think it's finally on our lap. Would you like to, anybody like to make a motion to?
Well, Rini, could I suggest, though, that I understand John's point, but I'm just wondering, could we at least get an idea of a cost for those couple points about the drawings and/or confirmation of compliance, so that, if it's really, a huge amount of work and a huge cost, then maybe it is worth just doing what they suggest right now. But in some respects, if it's not that much more cost-wise to develop it, and it fits within our envelope of money that we have, it feels to me like we would be saving a step and saving time to keep on moving forward, rather than having to go and do a second round of things. I don't know.
Yeah, Chris,
that was just my
Chris
thought.
raises a good point, and if we could get some idea of the cost of these additional services, maybe on that basis, we could, select the ones that we think that we would prioritize and get it all done at the same time.
So we can go back and ask them to requote based on those additional
Yeah,
items.
that's all I'm saying, is maybe
Yeah.
just get an idea what those extra one or two things might cost, and see,
So-
if they're really egregious, then fine, we let it go. But I mean,
Okay.
And this doesn't have a date on it. On the proposal, and
well, it might have been, yeah, it doesn't.
Let's see.
on the letterhead, I don't see anything.
Yeah, good point. I don't see any date either.
So, yeah, I think,
So what I'm hearing is that people are interested in learning what the cost would be to look at compliance with historic buildings and also the existence of hazardous materials. Is there anything else? Or pictures, I think, drawings.
Drawings, maybe those three things, I don't know.
It says measured drawings of existing conditions.
yes.
I don't know, I mean,
Oh. Okay.
and I think depending on when this was issued, but it looked like maybe this quote was only good for 30 days.
Really? Oh, yeah, I see that.
That's what it's,
Our terms for payment are net 30 days, so that's
yeah.
payment.
Payment, okay. Okay.
It says, if this proposal is acceptable, we can schedule our work upon receipt of a signed copy of this proposal. Invoices will be issued monthly on an hourly plus expense. Our terms for payment are net 30 days. That's just, once they get the invoice.
Okay. Got it.
Okay.
okay.
So the plan is not to vote on this right now, but to ask Ed if he'd be willing to check back with Hill and ask them what would be the price of the available additional services. All the bullet points, if we're
Yes.
able to get the information on that and put it on the agenda for next time on the
Yes.
17th? Okay. Sounds good.
Good.
All right, so next then is the extended accident and sickness plan insurance options update. John,
Okay.
did you have?
Yeah, so I've talked to the two gentlemen that were here before. So really what we have to decide before they can do anything, and they're kind of in a, I don't know what the right word is. They came in here and gave us some information based on, some generalities. And they can't give us anything specific because once they start giving us pricing and all that, it kind of exposes their pricing, kind of rules them out of doing anything going forward. So the recommendation is we kind of decide what we want to do and put a request for a proposal out there to let different companies come back and say, in a request for a proposal, is different than a request for bid. A request for bid is, here's what we want, give us a hard price, and that's it. A request for proposals is, here's what we have now, here's what we're looking for, can you come back with some thoughts and ideas on how you think would be the best way to approach it? Like self-funding, should it be short-term, or do we fund the long-term? Does the employee do both of them? Do we have a cap where, once it goes over the cap, our insurance will kick in? There's a lot of different ways to do it. So we need to decide and go out to the groups and have them come in here and do official presentations with costs attached. And any particular company could say, if you want to do it this way, this way, this way, and this way, here's the cost. You know, and once we've got them, we've got them. You know, there's nobody put at a disadvantage. You know.
Did we get all the data that, you know, that was raised, the points that were raised? We
Yep.
already have all that?
Ed Ed sent me some before, and I sent it to them. Then he sent me some additional information that I sent out to him.
Okay,
Yeah,
that sounds reasonable.
Okay.
How do you get that information out about the request for proposals?
we have to do an official process.
Okay.
You want me to work with Ed on that?
That would be
Put
great.
it together? Okay.
If you're willing to do that, that would be great. Anybody else have any questions about that?
No, I think that's a good idea. Yep.
But we have the data for the last, how many years did?
4 years we gave them. Now, let me just, in general, we're all in favor of looking at converting out of that 26-week plan to do something more structured so that we'll have budgetary figures on a regular basis so we can account for it going forward. Is that basically what we're looking for? Okay. Just
And
want-
what about the contracts? I think what we're also looking to do is to possibly, if we develop this or buy into this sort of plan
Yep.
for not being self-insured, is that something that would be negotiated into contracts potentially?
For not being self-insured?
Yeah, I mean, right now, we're self-insured. If we're
Absolutely.
going to go through a commercial product
Right.
for disability insurance, then we would look to possibly extend it to the different unions in the future?
Well, we'd have to negotiate with the unions, yeah. But if we put it in plan for the non-union, then we sat down with the unions, we can open a contract negotiation at any time.
Right.
And I think our goal is to give them something at least as good now, and maybe some additional benefits like the long-term on there, so
Right.
it'd be a positive to the union members.
Right.
Yeah, we can't go and make it worse by any means, so,
Right, right.
yeah, we can do that. And whether we self-fund or not, because you may have a self-funding pool for, you know, the first $10,000 a year, we're self-funding, and then our insurance costs would be a lot lower, because they're not touching it until it hits 10,000. But there's a lot of different ways, so that's what this will show us.
Right.
And put costs to it.
Yeah, and I think the other thing, regardless of how we do it, we need to figure out a way to set up some kind of I mean, if we do the, you know, up to a threshold, or we continue to be fully self-insured, we need to set up some kind of a fund so that when people go out, the departments
Right.
are able to hire replacement workers so that the work still gets done.
Yeah.
And we right now don't have a line item for
Right.
that, but that's.
Yeah,
It's got to be more predictable than it is now.
If there is any self-funding, but if there's no self-funding, then
Then
we're
we're
all
fine.
set, yeah.
Yeah.
But we still then have to come up with this money, too.
Right, we have to
Yeah,
put it in the
for
budget.
premium, yeah.
And my guess is we may have to pinch every budget a few bucks to get it, but I think it'd be a lot easier, like you're saying, Francine, so highway doesn't lose somebody in the middle of winter,
Right,
Yeah.
or
right.
the police department.
Anything else? Any other questions for John on that? So thank you, John, for
Yeah, that's
Yeah, You're welcome.
offering to do that. We already talked about the shared building commissioner. Anything else on that?
Nope.
Nope. Okay, new business, Memorial Day Parade. I had actually asked John to put this, Ed to put this on the agenda because, you know, we're getting, you know, we're in March now, and I think there was a letter from Rich Leclerc in there, so in the past, I know Cindy Palmer and myself have helped with planning the Memorial Day celebration. And it says, Board of Select folks, I like that. Please express your pleasure or not that I may organize and gather people who will help out with the Memorial Day Parade, May 25th, 2020. Interest has been expressed by former supporters. We need to have a meeting to be announced. If I'm able to be at the meeting, a phone call would be appreciated. So if, I know last year, they were kind of in a pinch to get a speaker, a veteran speaker. So actually, the veteran liaison that I work with, who actually sings the national anthem and did a wonderful job, and actually did a nice speech, participated. So I know that, I don't know if he has anybody in mind, but if there are people that are interested, is there anybody that is interested in helping out with the Memorial Day Parade?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
can help if you need it.
Okay. I'm happy to reach out to Rich and just let him know that, set up a meeting, let us know what you need, and we'll help in any way that we can. I know Cindy and I had done envelopes and sent out invitations, but it's always it's always a nice town thing to do.
Well, he does such a great job,
He sure does. Yeah, he sure does. And, it's such a nice day with the chorus and such.
Yeah.
Okay, Boston Post cane, I did check yesterday, and as we know that there are 4 residents in town that I believe are turning 97, and one in particular, I believe, the town clerk reached out. And with Lucy being very busy with the election, I don't believe, as of yesterday, she had heard back. So we'll add that to next agenda. Disclosure of non-elected municipal employees of financial interest, Randall Kemp Highway Superintendent. So in the packet is a disclosure form, and we've seen these before, and so people have a chance to read that through?
Yep. I'll make a motion, we accept it.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
And that actually is here to be signed. There's a couple of documents. One is yet to be talked about. Wait a minute, licenses and permits, okay. Any other business that can't wait until the March 17th regular select board meeting? Anybody have anything? I would like to mention, it's not on the agenda tonight, but I would like to mention that we did get a letter this morning from the Conservation Commission relative to the land that the town voted to release on College Highway as the farm. And so I will request that it be on the agenda for the next select board meeting. We have now heard back from the Planning Board and the Conservation Commission, which is what we had requested, so we can talk about next steps.
Did the Concom give us any suggestions? I know planning wanted to make sure that I forget exactly what it was, the water.
Yeah, I just said, at the conservation meeting this evening, we discussed the town property at 93 College Highway. It was reviewed from the wetlands perspective, our jurisdiction. The whole area is essentially wetland and buffer, which makes sense since the tires had been put there to stabilize the area from washouts. As such, pretty much anything done there outside of agricultural usage would require a permit from the Conservation Commission. The APR regulations would direct activities related to farming and limit some uses of the land. So
Okay.
that's basically the letter that came in this morning from the Chair of Conservation Commission.
Okay.
And then planning, we'd received a letter previously just reminding everybody about the easement.
Yep.
Yeah, so we'll bring that back up at the next meeting. I'll ask Ed to put on the agenda for the 17th.
Okay.
We have no PCFs, but we do have a license and permit. Are you Anna Owen?
I am.
Hi.
Hi.
How you doing? This is a one-day beer and wine permit, the Beer Guy LLC, Harley Davidson of Southampton, benefit fundraiser, chili cook-off contest, March 14th, 2020, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. And Anna Owen is here to speak on behalf of them. So, welcome.
Hi.
Hi.
So I'm here on behalf of Dave for the chili cook-off at the Southampton Harley Davidson next Saturday. So we are, licensed to do these public events as well as tip certified employees to be able to handle anything that comes along in those types of instances if something were to happen. And yeah, do you have any questions regarding the event?
No, I looked through and it looks like all the paperwork is...
Is in order, yeah.
Yep.
Anybody have any questions?
Other than if you've never been to it, you should go. There's a lot of chili there, and there's a lot of different kinds, and they make chili with stuff you wouldn't believe sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds wonderful. That's next Saturday,
Yes, next Saturday, yeah.
and hope you have great weather.
11 to 4, I know, fingers crossed.
Who's the fundraiser for, the benefit fund?
They didn't tell me. I just came with Ed and Dave just to do it, yeah, so I wish I knew, but
I forget, because a gentleman gets up on the roof, and he stays up there, I believe, that's the event, and he broadcasts or something from there, if I'm thinking of that right?
yeah, I think there's going to be like live
Tammy,
music.
are you remembering?
Yeah, they get up there and they can't come down until
They get so much money.
Until they
yeah.
get the money.
It's worth seeing.
So hope for a good day.
Hey,
Yeah.
put some people up there, yeah.
Thank you.
Good.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, everybody signed the paperwork on that? Okay. Warrants.
Okay.
Francine?
Warrant P 20-34 for $272,495.60. Vendor warrant W 20-35 for $403,634.77.
Any question about the warrants?
Just one question. I'd just like to have on the agenda at some point in time, there's a mention here on the Treasury warrant under the gas and electric for Town Hall, the Belden Agrigrid bill, which this is where we're,
Yeah.
what? We're getting theoretically some money back, right?
Right,
On
right.
this. I'd just like to hear more about how this is all working in terms of our, our contribution into the Agrigrid system here, Ag-Grid system. And just to have more information about how that's actually working for us, if we're actually getting money back, and all those kind of credits, just to understand that process a little bit better.
Yes, that's a good idea.
Yeah, I'll ask Ed to add that to the agenda. And you went to, did you go to the tour,
I did. It was a different one. It was one in Granville, which is not the one that services our town, but it's
Okay.
very similar to the one in, I guess, Belden, I believe, is up in Hatfield. And that's the one that we contribute to, where basically the dairy farm is converting all the waste into, and they're getting in a lot of commercial waste, but they're converting it into basically a biogas digester system, and then selling that energy to the grid and so forth. And so we're part of that whole system with the Belden Agrigrid group.
Okay, you know what, we voted on the disclosure, but I don't think we voted on the permit, did we? I don't know that we voted on the approving the alcohol.
The license.
Yeah, so
we
why don't
did.
we go ahead and do that?
Yeah, let's vote on
I'll
it.
make a motion, we accept it.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Ty,
Fine. Chris can have it.
Chris,
Whatever.
John, then Chris, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you for the warrants, and yes, we'll add aggregate grid to the agenda for one of the next two meetings. Any other requests for agenda items, other than what's still pending? Anybody want to look at the pending list? We have land
Yeah,
donation.
I would like to add to that, so that we can continue to make some progress on these bylaws. Our lawyer has several of them that we've not had a response on, and so we need to understand what the schedule is so that we can feed, so that no one is overwhelmed at any point in time with what's in the pipeline.
I do know when I talked to Ed at town not that long ago, we also have to look at the budget for the, if we're going to be doing a lot of bylaws review, we have to look at the legal budget.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that should go along with it.
And that's why I'm hoping if this software company that assists a lot of municipalities across the state to update and maintain their bylaws, what legal services they might offer. Because that's all they do. It might be a little less expensive for us to work with them.
Well, and tied with that, Francine, at some point, we ought to schedule, we had talked about maybe having a joint meeting somehow, or with folks from planning or zoning or others that might use that system, and have
Right.
somebody come in and actually present that
And I think,
E360 program to us.
Right.
and I think we just need to give Lucy a date so she can make the arrangements.
Yeah, okay.
So why don't we do that?
Okay, sounds good.
And
Okay.
on the, I'm sorry, I was going to say, on the College Highway, Ed is going to put an update on next week in the executive session.
Okay. Okay.
Good.
And actually, a lot of the items there are kind of like on the front burner we either talked about tonight, or I'm going to ask for the Green Communities grant. We got to stay on that deadline. I mean, we've got an extension, but, I mean, that's already money in the bank. We need to come up with what our savings would be from LED lighting and all that.
Do we know why we still have the dog complaint on there?
You know-
Either it's settled or it's not, you know?
I know.
So maybe we
Yeah.
can get it taken off, or if we
Yeah.
need to do something.
Yeah. I'll review that with them and see. Hopefully it's settled. At least we
Yeah.
haven't heard any
Right.
problem. That's on a White Loaf. Okay, we already talked about select board meetings, and we don't have any executive session. Open time for the public? Anybody have anything else to talk about?
We put Velcro on her seat.
All right, then how about a motion to adjourn then?
I move to adjourn.
Second,
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, good night, everyone.
just as a
Night.
comment, because I can see.